He was referred to me by a gentleman that I knew from a number of years back when I was litigating a double jeopardy issue involving criminal prosecution and forfeiture back in the early 90s. He happened to, well, Tony was looking for an attorney for a second opinion on the forfeiture, and this gentleman, referred him to me, and that's how he came to me. Starting over, you know. I don't know what's going to happen to him at sentencing. My understanding is he's looking at 36 months. Typically when individuals get out, he'll be on supervised release, so the federal government will be keeping tabs on him. I don't, I don't know what he's going to do. I would imagine he'll just start his business over again and conduct it in a little different manner. I've talked to him numerous times about listening to people's advice and maybe getting a second opinion when he's not sure, rather than just using his own lack of knowledge and making uninformed decisions, which is what happened to him. Structuring laws are kind of a interesting body of law. It was never contemplated to be used in the manner that they've used it. He had some pretty poor advice. I can't imagine any lawyer telling somebody to make deposits in less than $10,000. There's no reason, when the money is from a legitimate source, and just going and depositing, $80,000 or $100,000 or whatever it might be, and filling out the report. You draw much more suspicion on yourself when you make small deposits. And lately there's been a number of investigations, and not so much prosecutions, but certainly seizures of money from even stores that they might take in $8,000 a day, and they'll make a deposit, and then a couple days later they'll make another $8,000 deposit, and the next thing they know, their bank accounts are frozen. The government tries to take their money for violation of anti-structuring laws, and it's all done innocently. There's certainly no criminality, and that's not what those laws were designed to prevent. It's just unfortunate, that they pursue that. Although my understanding is that the policies are changing. It's not helping anybody like Tony. I've had other cases where I was able to resolve structuring cases with a compromise on the amount of money forfeited, and the government declined to prosecute any as far as a crime. Certainly they took money, but there was no criminal prosecution involved. I haven't had any time to really look at it. He has an interesting story. He's an interesting guy. He's an imposing individual. He's certainly he's not a small man. He can be somewhat intimidating. He's definitely a stubborn guy. But his story is interesting. I think it's retaliation on the part of the local government. They weren't able to do anything to him. He's not involved in drugs. He was a music producer essentially, and they didn't like the type of music that he was producing. Their investigations went nowhere, and so the next thing you knew, the federal government was investigating his, banking transactions, and they weren't able to find any other criminal wrongdoing. The only thing he's really been charged with is making deposits, numerous deposits in an amount less than $10,000. Structuring laws were initially designed as a tool to help law enforcement curb money laundering by drug dealers and mobsters and things like that. Later on, they were used to seize essentially innocent people's money who mistakenly deposited less than $10,000 and did it over a period of time. The law itself imposes a requirement on the banks to file a currency transaction report whenever anybody makes a deposit of cash or withdrawal of cash in excess of, or under, or in excess of $10,000. When someone makes a series of deposits that are less than $10,000, that's where there's a triggering that happens. Typically, it's the bank will fill out a suspicious transaction report, or somehow inform the government that this individual is depositing large amounts of cash over a period of days, or in separate branches. It's a funny law because it doesn't really require, at least on the part of the government, they don't feel that it requires an intent to defraud the government out of anything. I mean, all it's required really is if you go to make a deposit of $10,000 and you deposit $9,900 one day, and the next day you go in and deposit another $500, that's structuring. The law itself is structuring a cash transaction to avoid the reporting requirement. When you do that, a bank will take $5,000 from you. They don't have to fill out the currency transaction report. Frankly, I've seen situations like Tony's and where the bank officers themselves will say, why don't you break this deposit into separate deposits? And it's not like it's any trouble for the banker or the teller to fill out a currency transaction report. I mean, so many banks, it's just an electronic, we got this guy's social security number, we took in this amount of cash, period, that's it, end of story. It's a funny law, and it's causing a lot of harm these days to a number of innocent business owners.